conclude, I ask that Overview and Scrutiny councillors demand the production of a full report containing all options and the use of sound data. A decision could then be made against the facts, rather than against a report that contains missing options, unreliable data, and unrealistic travel expectations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Beavers. In response, can Councillor Lynn Bowen and I believe Councillor Alan Vincent may want to respond as well.
Thank you, Chairman. I have written a statement here. I don't know if you want me to read it now. It does cover quite a few of the points what Councillor Beavers had said. There were so many things what she said, I can't remember all of them. But I do know that the 20 minutes for the nearest pool for the residents of Wyre was based on the Sport England's guidelines. The residents of Fleetwood, the nearest pool, I think from the, if they're not going to use Fleetwood, it would be Moor Park. And that is the 60% of Wyre residents are in 20 minutes journey of that part of that pool. Do you want me to read my statement now, or do you want me to just try and answer some of the questions? I know the financial questions will be answered by Councillor Vincent, so what do you want me to do?
I'm quite happy to, if you wish, just answer the questions when they come in a while. Councillor Alan Vincent, do you want to make comment now?
I'm struggling with my camera, unfortunately, again. So you may have to just take me as sound only. I don't really, there wasn't much by way of financial statement content in there. All I can say on that at the moment, and I'm happy to take questions later, is that we looked at the figures that were in the report, which I think all members will have seen. The recommendation that we made, or that was made to us by the YMCA, was done specifically on the basis of two issues, really. One was that they thought it was the most cost-effective option, and the other two was a sort of an A and B, if you like, which is the first one being that they have more schools going to that particular pool than anyone else, and that they also have retained the highest percentage of their numbers. I'm at slight odds with Councillor Beavers' figures for that percentage. I make it 64% compared to Fleetwood's 39%. But they were the major considerations that were made, and nothing particularly else. The money, as I said at the time, in a question that was asked to me by Rob Fale, the leader of the Labour group, that you cannot take the figure for the cost of opening 2021, which is a relatively short period from January, February, March. You can't take that in isolation, because clearly it won't just be opening them for January, February, and March. They'll be carrying on being open well into next year. And you therefore do clearly have to consider what the impact will be in 21-22. And again, clearly, you're entitled to draw some conclusions from that impact as to whether you can or cannot afford to pursue a more reckless proposal from Labour, in my view, that we should just do it anyway, regardless of what the cost is, because in effect that's what they're asking you to do, is to say it doesn't matter what the costs 21-22 are. It's only £28,000 more in 2021, but you can't do that in isolation. It would be folly, it would be madness. You have to see what the impact will be on next year. And in effect, what we were saying and what has caused all the fuss, it seems to me, is that we wanted to open the pools on a trial basis, or one of the pools on a trial basis, and we picked the most cost-effective one. Would it have been better if we just left them all closed and said, well, we can't do any more until such time as COVID is past and we can start recovering some of our income? Because that appears to be some of the noise coming from the Labour activists in Fleetwood. It's almost as if we can't have it, no one else can. And I hope that isn't what they're saying, because that would be really disappointing. What we're doing is taking this attitude. We are trialling this system, because, as I've already said, YMCAs think it's the most cost-effective solution. We think it's most likely to succeed in Garstang. What were we supposed to do? Pick the one that we thought was less likely to succeed, or the least likely to succeed? What sort of genuine trial would that have been? So we did what, in our view, was the most honest, the most sensible, and the best course of action for people who want to use pools. And that is consider what we can afford to do in the short term, and also to consider whether people will come back and use the pools. It's okay saying that they will. We need to be confident that that will happen in reality. And the same with the schools. Councillor Bowen makes much about different people saying different things. We're not all from the same area, Councillor Beavers. Councillor Henderson was speaking on behalf of some schools that he is connected with in Polton. Councillor Bowen was talking about the rural areas. Not everything happens just in Fleetwood. So people have an opinion about other places, and that opinion is not always the same, because people from different places in different parts of Wyre say different things at different times. So don't round on that as if it's something very important, because it isn't. What I would say to you is that we're absolutely doing our best here to get a good solution. We're doing our best to be as fair as we possibly can. And I accept one of the things that was said in her call-in, which is that the projections for 21-22 are just that, the projections. Well, yes, they are. And the implication from her and her supporters is, well, we think your projections are actually too pessimistic. Unfortunately, projections, in my experience, particularly when they're based on business cases, tend to be rather more optimistic than pessimistic. And unfortunately, since we did reopen, it would seem that that view has been borne out by the figures that we're getting back from YMCA. I know it's only early days because it's only 2.5, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. But unfortunately, Councillor Beaver's suggestion that the figures would be better, or a hint that they would be better, is not proving to be the case. They're worse. So unfortunately, we're not meeting even what we thought was a fairly modest target at the moment, and that's not a criticism of people, because people are scared by the coronavirus. It does put people off going back to gym environments or back into environments where they think they might not be as safe as they want to be. So it's okay to say they'll go back. You have to hard test it, and this is the hard test. Will they or won't they? She misses out the comment I made to Councillor Liz Foster, and that was there is a heavy responsibility on the people of Garstang here. They've said that their schools will go back. They've said that they will use the pool. They better had, because as Councillor Henderson said on the night, the situation financially is such that it is going to be use it or lose it if we're not careful. We have to make sure that we do the right thing and we all support each other, which is why it's so sad that some of the Fleetwood councillors are being very divisive on this issue. And what has been a united front across Wyre throughout this pandemic is being fractured into regionalism, and that's really disappointing. That's all I want to say for now, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Now an opportunity for any members of the committee to ask any questions. If you could just indicate by typing chat.
I've got Councillor Ballard, Councillor Collinson and Councillor Longton.
Me. I put my hand up.
And me as well.
Just to clarify, only members of the committee can ask questions. And just to clarify that.
Can you put me down as well then, please?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Ellison.
If we start with Councillor Ballard, please.
Just Chairman, I'd like to ask you, so just a position I would like to share. would it be not prudent if anyone had a declaration of interest who shared a position on the social media needs to declare an interest? That's just a quick question. But before that, I'd just like to remind overview and scrutiny, we can only refer this item back to the portfolio holder to look at it if they wish so, or we agree with the decision. Just to clarify that point, because someone's thinking that we can overturn it and say yay or nay, and we can't.
Yes, you're correct, Howard.
But these are just a few questions I'd like to ask to either Councillor Bowen or Councillor Vincent. School children, as you know, tend to use the swimming pools from spring. Now, if Garstang's saying they're going to, and I think that is quite prudent because Garstang has 17 schools towards Fleetwood, who only has 14. And can you inform me how long will it take to fill the Fleetwood pool and be operational? That's another item I'd like to know. And one item that I would like to ask, I would thought more of Councillor Vincent being county. We took over the Fleetwood pool in 2007, I believe. Can you inform me, has any pools been closed in Wyre in the last, I don't know, since 2000? Those are my questions.
Chairman, at the risk of interjecting inappropriately, can I just respond, hopefully, helpfully, to Councillor Ballard's point about social media and declarations of interest? I think there is a significant difference between a councillor making comments and therefore demonstrating that they are predisposed to having a particular view. There's a difference between that and them coming to a meeting such as this with a predetermined view. And I don't think that any members who have expressed views on social media or to friends and acquaintances in recent days, from my knowledge of what's been going on, none of that amounts to predetermination. So my view would be, subject to your agreement, that all members should be entitled to speak as members of the committee and ultimately vote, because I don't think there's anything that is significantly predetermined by any member.
Thank you, Roy. I take that point on view. I am conscious, like Howard, that it would seem slightly difficult for someone to not give the image that they've predetermined their image if they do make sort of strong statements on social media. However, there is an element of confusion here, in as much as that some of these elements were regarding thinking that the pool was to be closed permanently, rather than what the work of the committee this evening is to determine whether it was a good decision by Cabinet. Councillor Vincent, would you like to reply?
In terms of whether the kids will use it or not, certainly from my information is that the schools have been contacted by YMCA, and that the vast majority of schools, and I'm not being partisan here, it's across the board. I think that the majority of schools are saying that they do want to come back. And I think there are only 2 potentially schools in Garstang who are saying that they might not come back until spring. The rest are all saying that they will come back straight away. And there has been a meeting with some of the Fleetwood schools, I know, recently, and they expressed a determination that they wanted to come back, and we're waiting for some further information from them, I think. So I'm confident that schools, generally speaking, will come back, but I think there are certain issues at certain schools, so a minority might not come back. In terms of operational time, I have asked that question, actually, because it seemed slightly odd to me that the cost of reopening the pools was suggested to be only £28,000, and I'm still puzzled by that figure, I have to say, because my gut instinct is that it would have been a lot more. But I understand that certainly at Fleetwood it would take about 2 weeks to refill the pools and to reheat the pools, because of the size of the pool involved, the main pool. that it would take about 2 weeks to get it up to a temperature that made it usable. So that seems to be the answer to that question. It's about a couple of weeks.